I mean, the Trump, Vance, Musk movement, when we made this choice, are we going to embrace technology and Starlink and electric vehicles and entrepreneurship? Are we going to give the people their freedom back? Are we going to embrace innovation? Right? That choice that took place on Tuesday, November 5th, that catapulted us into a whole new world of possibilities, and that made the strategic Bitcoin reserve possible, and that made the recapitalization of the world on sound economic, ethical, and engineering principles possible. And that's why it's been such a good week, Natalie.
Hey guys, welcome to Everyday Finance. This article by Michael Saylor explains why Bitcoin is not just another investment. Rather, it is a revolutionary form of digital gold and a powerful tool for protecting wealth in a world that is full of inflation and currency devaluation. In his explanation, he explains that Bitcoin provides something that traditional assets cannot: complete scarcity, security, and independence from central banks. According to Saylor, true wealth is not about holding cash that loses value. Rather, it is about owning assets that maintain their strength over time, and Bitcoin was designed specifically for the purpose of performing this function. In order to demonstrate why Bitcoin is a game changer for both individuals and businesses, he delves into the mathematics, the technology, and the history with which money is associated. It is crystal clear what he's trying to convey. If you comprehend how Bitcoin operates and the reasons why it is distinct, you will realize that it is more than just a trend. It is the basis of the future of finance. As a result, let's dive in and find out what the secrets are to achieving long-term wealth in this computer age.
Now, who else uses sovereign debt as capital? Operating companies. So public companies and banks, operating companies, are forced to use toxic capital, which is weak capital, I'll call it. The US dollar is great as currency. It's not great as capital. All the Bitcoiners know this. And so, and money, what is money? Well, money is fungible, a fungible liquid asset. Well, the problem, why is real estate can't be money? Because you can't buy a cup of coffee with a building in London, right? A building's not money.
Right.
It is capital. It's a liquid, non-fungible capital. How about a share of Apple stock? Is it money? Not really. It's fungible capital. Nvidia stock, Apple stock's fungible capital, but it's not real. You can't like buy a cup of coffee on Saturday morning with your Apple stock. So capital assets in the 20th century aren't money. Currency is money, but currency is not a good capital asset. Post-Satoshi, all of a sudden, we have a money, which is a capital asset, which is Bitcoin. And now, the significance of what's going on with the strategic Bitcoin reserve is the United States is going to own the world's reserve capital network, Bitcoin. We're going to mine Bitcoin. The Bitcoin miners run the world reserve capital network. Bitcoin holders own the world reserve capital. If you want a prescription for prosperity in the 21st century, there's no better prescription than to own the world's reserve capital, run the world's reserve capital network, benefit from the growth of the world's reserve capital asset. And the logic from the United States point of view is we already run the world reserve currency. Now we'll own the world's reserve capital network. If people ever recapitalize their sovereign debt with Bitcoin, it will be a benefit to the American people, the American corporations, the American way of life, the American ideology, and it's a way out. Like we talked about, Natalie, we've talked about the despair of the working class that can't get ahead, and the hope that Bitcoin brings to the working class. an individual or family can buy Bitcoin. Oftentimes, we don't really empathize with the despair of a corporation or the despair of a bank. Sometimes we don't really empathize with them. But what about the despair of a bank which is capitalized on a collapsing asset capital? What about the despair of a corporation? 1% of the companies in the S&P 500 make all the money. The others work hard. When I found Bitcoin, I was in despair. I had worked for a decade. I had spent 20,000 man years attempting to do everything under the sun. I could not get ahead.
Right.
And I was the same me. I wasn't stupid, right? You look at me and say, well, this is Michael Saylor, worked as hard as he could for a decade and could not get ahead, right? And the most pernicious thing you can do to someone is you make them think that they're just not smart enough, and the reason they're failing is because they're not smart and they don't work hard enough. And then you realize, no, the system is rigged against you. So what does this mean? What does the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve mean? It means that Bitcoin is hope for the people, but it means that once the United States embraces Bitcoin as the world's reserve capital network and it builds that strategic Bitcoin reserve, the path is open for corporations in the United States to recapitalize on Bitcoin. And the path is open for banks to recapitalize on Bitcoin. And now corporations don't have to die. Banks don't have to die. Institutions are already off the hook. Individuals are already off the hook. For an endowment and for a family and for a private company, it's your choice if you choose the asset which is going up 60% a year or the asset which is going down 6% a year. That's your choice. But it was never a choice for the banks in the US. It was never a choice for operating companies in the US. And so what Senator Lummis is doing is really much more profound than we're going to buy some Bitcoin. What she is doing is she is laying the ethical, economic, technical foundation to revitalize the banking system in the US and in the world, all the public companies in the US and then the world, all of the institutions. And she's spreading the American way of life, the American ideology. And what will first happen is America will do it, but eventually every other country in the world, in Europe, in South America, in the Middle East, they will all look at what we're doing and they will follow us in the same way that, when we started building airports and airplanes, they followed us. And when we started embracing electricity, they followed us. And when John D. Rockefeller started, creating gasoline and kerosene, the world wanted to buy it. And the world wanted to buy Henry Ford's automobiles. They're going to want Bitcoin, and they're going to want digital capital. And this is really, it's a pivotal moment in the history of the world. I mean, the Trump, Vance, Musk movement, when we made this choice, are we going to embrace technology and Starlink and electric vehicles and entrepreneurship? Are we going to give the people their freedom back? Are we going to embrace innovation? Right? That choice that took place on Tuesday, November 5th, that catapulted us into a whole new world of possibilities, and that made the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve possible, and that made the recapitalization of the world on sound economic, ethical, and engineering principles possible. And that's why it's been such a good week.
Ethereum whales are making significant moves, quietly stacking more ETH than they have in over 6 years. This is a strong signal that something significant may be on the horizon. On a single day, June 15th, wallets that contained between 1,000 and 10,000 ETH were able to acquire more than 818,000 Ethereum, which is estimated to be worth approximately $2.5 billion. For the first time since 2018, this is the highest daily whale accumulation. Compared to just under 12 million ETH in the previous year, these major players now hold over 16 million ETH, which is a significant increase. While this is going on, The price of Ethereum is fluctuating sideways within a narrow range between $2,150 and $3,600. This is almost exactly the same as the calm buildup that occurred prior to the massive 1,000% rally in 2017. According to many analysts, this is a bullish setup, and they are keeping a close eye on it. If the momentum manages to break through the key resistance, there is the possibility of reaching short-term targets such as $4,000, while long-term projections anticipate reaching as high as $10,000. All indications point to the possibility that Ethereum, ETH, is getting ready for its next major breakthrough. As whales are loading up, institutional interest is climbing, and strong support is being shown across Ethereum's ecosystem.
I think if you look at the world today, there's $900 trillion or more of wealth in the world. A lot of that wealth is invested in real estate. A lot of that wealth is invested in equity. A lot of that wealth is invested in gold, in art. A lot of that wealth is in currencies. A lot of that wealth is in bonds, corporate bonds, governmental bonds, and then a lot of that wealth is in various other forms of derivatives. The compelling use case, the most important use case in the world, the most valuable thing in the world is just long-term capital, long-term store of value. That's worth half of all that. $450 trillion worth of long-term capital, right? When people struggle with what's the use case of Bitcoin or what's the use case of anything, well, the irony is they're staring right at it. It's like to be rich and stay rich forever. It's what everybody wants. It's what every kid wants. Every 3-year-old wants this. There's no one that ever lived in the history of the world that didn't want more money, more power, right? They wanted wealth and prosperity. So that's worth $450 trillion. Capital. That is the compelling thing. Now, what is currency? Well, currency is the medium of exchange. It's what I swap in order to get my gasoline, or in order to buy a donut, in order to pay the rent. And it's the high frequency liquid money, liquid stable high frequency money. It allows 400 million companies to have a price list with 100 items on it. So you've got billions and billions and billions of prices in a certain, in a certain currency, and we need to swap that back and forth at high frequency. Well, how valuable is that? I don't know, 10 trillion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 trillion? Not 450 trillion. A very simple use case, or a simple acid test is Jeff Bezos, worth 200 billion. How much of the 200 billion is invested in US dollars, pure dollars, in a savings account or a checking account right now? What, 1%? You think he's got $2 billion cash? No. He probably doesn't, Bernard Arnault, worth 180 billion. How many dollars or euros do you think Bernard Arnault has right now right? Not even 1%. So if the 450 trillion is the wealth, right? That is assets held for capital preservation. The other 400 trillion or 450 trillion, assets held for utility. I have this house, so we can have this interview. I like the backyard. I like the pool. I could park a yacht in the backyard. I like it.
Can't live in a Bitcoin.
The yacht is a utility. The jet is a utility. The chair is a utility. The art is utility value. It's okay. You own the sports team because you want to go sit courtside and root for the team, right? There are a lot of, you own Apple because you want to root for Apple and you want dividends maybe. So you own a bakery because you like the idea of creating cool things with the bakery. You own the restaurant because you love the restaurant business. You own a resort in Hawaii because you want to invite your friends to the resort in Hawaii. There's a lot of things in the world that are held for their utility value. You should own a bond because you want to clip the coupons. You want fixed income in a secure currency. In a world without digital capital, without perfected capital, then we have to monetize the real estate, monetize the bond, monetize the stock, monetize the art, monetize, everything under the sun. What does that mean? It means that you pay twice as much as it's worth. You pay 50 times earnings, but the company's only worth 10 times earnings, but you pay 50 times. Why? I know wealthy people, they own 16 estates on the Eastern Shore, and they live in 2 of them. Like, why do they buy them? They land banking. What does that mean? Well, the guy makes a lot of money every year, and he doesn't want to put it in a savings account, so he goes and he just buys a cool piece of property, and he buys another one. Well, okay, it sounds good, but here's the problem. The guy buys up the beautiful pieces of property, and so you can't afford it.
Right.
And if the rich guy wasn't buying up all the beautiful houses, they would cost half as much. And you could live in a beautiful house. So here's what happens. Some rich dude has 27 houses that are empty. You don't have a beautiful house. You have a family. Your kids, your dog could use the beautiful house. The rich dude doesn't even want the house. He just wants a long-term capital preservation strategy.
Across the cryptocurrency world, excitement is rapidly heating up as a result of the explosive momentum that Salana is experiencing. The token experienced a significant increase of nearly 10% on June 16th, going from $144 to $157 in a single day. Additionally, the trading volume surged to $4.5 billion, which is a clear indication that large amounts of money are paying attention. And what is the impetus for this rally? There is a growing amount of speculation that a Salana Spot Exchange-Traded Fund, ETF, that is approved by the United States could be on its way. Bloomberg analysts have expressed their belief that the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, may take prompt action on pending applications for the Salana ETF and staking. Over on Polymarket, the odds of an exchange-traded fund, ETF, being approved have nearly doubled in just 10 days, going from 77.5% to an astounding 91%. Some of the most prominent asset managers, including VanEck, Grayscale, and Bitwise, have all submitted S1 forms, which has reinforced the anticipation of institutional adoption. The data on futures is also becoming more and more exciting. Recently, the open interest in Salana futures reached 45.87 million SOL, which is a 22% increase in just 1 month. This constitutes a total of nearly $7 billion, which places Salana as the 3rd most in-demand cryptocurrency in futures markets. It appears that a bullish flag pattern is developing on the charts. This is a classic setup that frequently results in breakouts. Analysts believe that a surge toward $315 is possible if Salana is able to turn the resistance at $161 into support. This would result in the price of the cryptocurrency potentially doubling.